Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Here are the stories we're following today.
Karen, we'll get back to the markets in a moment, but we begin with breaking news in the Middle East. Israel says it has eliminated the head of Hamas's military wing. In a post on X, the Israeli military says it has confirmed Hamas's second in command, Mohammed Deif, was killed in a strike in Gaza on July 13th. Bloomberg Middle East anchor Jumana Bersetchi has the latest from Dubai.
From Israel's perspective, it is a major diplomatic coup for the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu because they have said from the very beginning that they wanted to exact revenge on the perpetrators of October 7 and on Hamas. And so from their perspective, this actually works towards the goal of eliminating and neutralizing Hamas's military capabilities.
Bloomberg Middle East anchor Jumana Bersetchi says this latest killing leaves ceasefire talks with Hamas even more uncertain.
Nathan, this latest development out of Israel follows the two airstrikes this week that killed Hamas's political leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran and senior Hezbollah commander Fuad Shukr in Beirut. Israel has not confirmed it was behind Haniyeh's death, but the New York Times reports Iran's supreme leader has ordered a direct attack on Israel in response. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is urging all sides to de-escalate.
It all starts with a ceasefire. And to get there, it also first requires all parties to stop taking any escalatory actions.
Despite that determination from Secretary of State Blinken, sources tell Bloomberg News that the Biden administration knows getting to a ceasefire is harder than ever after Ismail Haniyeh's death.
Turning to politics back home, Karen, former President Donald Trump was in Chicago for the National Association of Black Journalists conference, and he questioned Vice President Kamala Harris's racial identity. We get more from Bloomberg's Amy Morris in Washington.
The former president got booed and some laughs when he said during a roundtable discussion that he questions Vice President Kamala Harris's racial identity.
She was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black.
Trump also defended old comments from his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, that disparaged women without children as, quote, childless cat ladies, saying it was meant in a friendly manner. The National Association of Black Journalists says they're also in talks to have Vice President Harris virtually address their convention. Amy Morris, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, Amy, thank you. As Vice President Kamala Harris gets closer to picking a running mate, her team has met with Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. Bloomberg's Ed Baxter has that story.
They have said all along he's on the short list, which now includes Shapiro, Senator Mark Kelly, and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, and say that it was just part of the selection process and not to read anything into it. Sources as well say several unions have made their concerns known about Kelly. One, the Transport Workers Union, said he is not pro-trade union enough. In fairness, other unions have supported him. Harris did pick up the endorsement of the United Auto Workers, influential in Michigan. She plans to campaign with her pick next week. Ed Baxter, Bloomberg Radio.
Okay, Ed, thanks. Let's turn back to markets now. The barrage of earnings around the world. We'll start with Meta Platforms. Those shares are up 6.5% in early trading. The Facebook owner reported better than expected sales in the second quarter. Investments in artificial intelligence are helping Meta sell more targeted and personalized advertisements. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg talked about AI on the conference call.
There are all the jokes about how all the tech CEOs get on these earnings calls and just talk about AI the whole time. It's because it's actually super exciting, and it's going to change all these different things over multiple time horizons.
Mark Zuckerberg's Meta Platforms reported sales of $39.1 billion. That topped estimates by $800 million.
Well, Nathan, while Zuckerberg's personal wealth will rise if those gains in Meta shares hold, it may pale to the day NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang had. Shares of NVIDIA surged 13% yesterday, and we get more from Bloomberg's Doug Krisner.
The rally was linked to an upbeat forecast from competitor Advanced Micro Devices. AMD's outlook pointed to improved demand for its AI accelerator, a market dominated by NVIDIA. On Wednesday, NVIDIA added a record $329 billion in value, and Huang's net worth was boosted by nearly $12 billion. He is now the world's 14th richest person, with a net worth of nearly $103 billion. He has been steadily capitalizing on NVIDIA's outperformance this year. He sold shares worth nearly $169 million in June, the most he's netted in a single month. In New York, I'm Doug Krisner, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, Doug, thanks. And high tech will remain in focus this afternoon when Apple and Amazon report earnings. But let's check some key results overseas this morning. Shares of Shell are up 1.2%. The oil giant posted second quarter earnings above analyst estimates and confirmed another $3.5 billion share buyback.
Shares of Barclays were higher earlier. Now they're lower in London. The British lender reported better than expected income in the second quarter, aided by a surge in revenue from some of its Wall Street operations. Barclays will also repurchase as much as $963 million in shares.
Well, we turn to the U.S. economy, Karen, and more hints from the Fed that it could pull off a rate cut at its next meeting. Jay Powell kept rates unchanged yesterday, but the Fed chair signaled officials are on course to cut in September unless inflation progress stalls.
The question will be whether the totality of the data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks are consistent with rising confidence on inflation and maintaining a solid labor market. If that test is met, a reduction in our policy rate could be on the table as soon as the next meeting in September.
Following Fed Chair Jay Powell's comments, interest rate swaps showed traders fully pricing in a quarter-point cut in September and a total of almost 70 basis points in reductions for the year.
Well, Nathan, rates also in focus overseas. The Bank of England makes a policy decision later this morning, and economists say there could be the first rate cut since the start of the pandemic. Investors are placing a 64% chance on a quarter-point cut, taking the key lending rate from a 5.25% to 5%.
And back on Wall Street, Karen, it is a blow for Bill Ackman. In just a matter of weeks, the Pershing Square founders' plan to steer a new investment fund onto the New York Stock Exchange has collapsed. Ackman bet his wide following on X could raise $25 million for Pershing in an initial public offering. That would have been an unprecedented feat for a closed-end fund in the U.S. Ackman later cut that target to $4 billion, then $2 billion. By yesterday, Pershing Square withdrew the IPO completely.
It's time now for a look at some of the other stories making news in New York and around the world. For that, we're joined by Bloomberg's John Tucker. John, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Karen. The man accused of being the main plotter in al-Qaeda's 9/11 attacks has agreed to plead guilty. That's according to the Defense Department. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and two accomplices in the attack are expected to enter the pleas at the military commission at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, to avoid the death penalty. The U.S. agreement with the men comes more than 20 years after militants flew commandeered commercial airliners into buildings, killing nearly 3,000 people. Some family members of 9/11 victims say that's not justice. Andrew Ansborough is president of the Uniformed Firefighters Association.
They're allowing these three terrorists and mass murderers to continue to live while, on average, 3 New York City firefighters are dying every month.
More than 340 members of the FDNY died in the attack on the World Trade Center. The U.S. says the world should acknowledge that Venezuela's opposition won last weekend's election against President Nicolas Maduro. Brian Nichols, the top U.S. diplomat for Western Hemisphere affairs, spoke at a meeting of the Organization of American States in Washington.
With the irrefutable evidence based on the actas, everyone can see it is clear that Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia defeated Nicolas Maduro by millions of votes.
Meanwhile, Maduro doubled down on his claims of victory, saying his opponent should be jailed for decades. The American Cancer Society says cancer rates are up for Gen X and millennials. According to the research published in the journal Lancet, they have a 2 to 4 times higher rate of specific cancers like pancreatic or kidney. The good news is the number of lung cancer and cervical cancer deaths are on the decline. 45% of American adults say they've been billed in the past year for medical care they thought was covered by insurance. According to a report from the Commonwealth Fund, it leaves many footing the bill for insurance company errors. Sarah Collins, one of the authors of the report from the Independent Health Research Foundation.
When we asked them why they hadn't challenged, more than half said it was because they weren't aware that they had the right to do so.
Collins says more than a third of those who challenged their medical bills got their balances reduced or eliminated. Global news 24 hours a day, whenever you want it, with Bloomberg News Now. I'm John Tucker, and this is Bloomberg. Nathan and Karen.
All right, John, thank you. Time now for the Bloomberg Sports Update with John Stashower. John, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. It's been a rough season for DJ LeMahieu. The Yankees' veteran infielder has struggled at the plate, has seen his playing time shrink, but the latest Yankee win, 6-5 in Philadelphia, all about LeMahieu. A grand slam in the second inning, a two-run double in the sixth, a career high, 6 RBIs. LeMahieu drove in all 6. Here's Aaron Boone.
Really excited for him. Obviously, guys respect, know he's grinding, know he's going through it, and obviously hasn't got a lot of opportunities lately, and was clearly the difference today.
Yanks 5 straight wins, start a 9-game homestand tomorrow as the Mets begin a 10-game road trip. They lost at Citi Field to the Twins, 8-3. Red Sox pulled out a 3-2 10-inning win over Seattle. Nationals lost 5-4, got swept at Arizona. Red Hot Padres made it 9 of the last 10. They roughed up Clayton Kershaw, beat the Dodgers 8-1. Kansas City sent the White Sox to a 17th loss in a row. At the Olympics today, Simone Biles will seek individual gold. U.S. women's basketball team takes on Belgium. Tennis has American Tommy Paul trying to upset Carlos Alcaraz in the quarterfinals. In the pool yesterday, Katie Ledecky won her 8th career gold medal, winning easily in her specialty, the 1,500 meters. 12 career medals, ties the U.S. record. But the big story in swimming, the Frenchman Léon Marchand, he already won a gold in the IM. He won the 200-meter butterfly, came back 2 hours later to capture the 200 breaststroke. U.S. hoops team a 103-86 rout of South Sudan. John Stashower, Bloomberg Sports. Karen and Nathan.
Coast to coast on Bloomberg Radio, nationwide on Sirius XM, and around the world on Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager. We are watching for the prospect of further tensions in the Middle East, with Israel now saying it has confirmed the death of Hamas's military chief, Mohammed Deif, in a strike in Gaza. That follows the strike this week that killed Hamas's political leader, Ismail Haniyeh, in Tehran. Joining us from Tel Aviv once again this morning is Bloomberg News Israel Bureau Chief Ethan Brunner. Ethan, good morning. What is the Israeli military saying specifically about the military commander's death?
Hi, Nathan. So this is a hit that occurred actually more than 2 weeks ago. And at that time, the Israelis said they were pretty sure they got him. Hamas denied it. They said he's fine. He's laughing as he listens to Prime Minister Netanyahu, who claims to have killed him. Today, simply based on their ability to do some kind of intelligence assessment, the Israeli military has officially announced that Deif was eliminated on the 13th, I think it was, of July. So it's sort of coming on top of this other news, but it's not actually new. It's from 2 weeks ago.
But still, to Israel to make that confirmation, I would think is a pretty significant development when you think about where the leadership structure stands with Hamas now. The military chief, the second in command, eliminated. The political chief, the top leader of Hamas, eliminated. Does this bring Israel closer to its goal of eliminating Hamas as an organization?
I think it does, but I think this is the eternal question about these guerrilla organizations and about the policy of targeted assassinations and so on. There's a kind of eternal battle of theories that you just create more terrorists when you go after them in this way, or no, yes, we can kill them, we can eliminate it, and it's very difficult for me to know where we're headed. There's no question that progress has been made, and a lot of progress in disassembling the military structure of Hamas. Another argument that is being mooted here is that all of this action is a prelude to there being a ceasefire deal. And Netanyahu needs all of this kind of a chest beating in order to persuade the nation that it's okay to go ahead with the deal to get some hostages out and to create a ceasefire. I have no idea if that's true. What I do know is that in the coming days, we're going to get hit in this country from some combination of Hezbollah, Iran, and the Houthis. It's almost inevitable.
And with all that in the background, Ethan, we're continuing to hear this determination from the U.S. side, Secretary of State Blinken, on ceasefire talks progressing, tensions de-escalating. I mean, what is the prospect for ceasefire talks when we have this disarray in Hamas leadership? I mean, who's going to be in the talks at this point?
Well, to be fair, it has always been only one negotiator who mattered, and that's Yahya Sinwar, who's the overall leader of Hamas, who's in a tunnel somewhere under Gaza. It's a complicated process to negotiate because the messages and the communication have to go back and forth by hand. They don't do it electronically there. So, I mean, to be honest, Haniya played a role, the man who was killed in Tehran yesterday, but he was essentially doing the bidding of Sinwar. So someone else will do the bidding of Sinwar. That doesn't strike me as the problem. The problem is that I think that they're going to pull back from these talks, at least for a little while, in anger and humiliation for what has just happened, the killing of Haniya in Tehran. With a precision-guided missile of some kind. So that's likely to, but what the U.S. is doing is going around talking to everyone and saying, let's keep the waters calm. Let's not let this devolve into a major regional war. And and possibly what will happen is what happened in mid-April after Israel killed Iranian generals in Damascus. And there was a specific attack by Iran on the Israeli territory, but it looked, and I don't want to go too far in this direction, that it had been kind of signaled all around that it was relatively clear what was coming when, so that it could make a symbolic gesture but not create a war. And maybe that's what we'll see again. I don't know.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Today, your morning brief on the stories making news from Wall Street to Washington and beyond.
Look for us on your podcast feed at 6 a.m. Eastern each morning on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
You can also listen live each morning starting at 5 a.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg 1130 in New York, Bloomberg 99.1 in Washington, Bloomberg 106.1 in Boston, and Bloomberg 960 in San Francisco.
Our flagship New York station is also available on your Amazon Alexa devices. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130.
Plus, listen coast to coast on the Bloomberg Business app, SiriusXM, the iHeartRadio app, and on Bloomberg.com. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Join us again tomorrow morning for all the news you need to start your day right here on Bloomberg Daybreak.